Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wolf Den. This is the Howling Gamers Podcast, where we talk about video games, movies, anime, and anything else that piques our interest. I'm CyberWolfJimmy.
And I'm ZombieWolfFreakiod, and today we are continuing our multi-part series going down the rabbit hole on Kingdom Hearts. Now
Sure are.
we only got a few games in last time, two technically.
Two.
Today we're gonna try to knock off another three out of this. Some of them will be a little bit quicker than others, but we're gonna try to get through three more today before our final question, and then we're set up to really get into the weeds.
Yes. I will kick things off with the same disclaimer I put at the beginning last time. We are talking about the story, the combat, everything that has to do with the games. If you do not want to have those spoiled because you would like to experience them firsthand yourself, you'll probably want to stop this now and then go and watch either something like the complete collection that's on Playframe, or some of the summaries that have been put out by a number of other wonderful YouTubers, or just go play the games, and we'll see you in a couple years.
Yeah, there's some good packages out there with some bundles, so go play them and enjoy these wonderful chaotic games for yourself. But yes, we're gonna spoil them. We're gonna tell you what happens in the story, so just be warned that that's what's happening. All right, let's kick it off. We need as much time as possible today because we're starting off with Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, which I think if for most people was the actual second game that they dove into,
Yes.
Missing Chain of Memories.
Because a lot of people didn't do Chain of Memories, which confused them a little bit. But let's be honest, even if you play Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 2 starts very confusingly.
And it's not a short intro either. The intro with you're immediately thrown into being with Roxas and in Twilight Town, which obviously you can assume that different place, different person with a keyblade. I was scared that we are no longer going to see Sora, and he has now been replaced with blonde Sora. Is that what we'll call him? But it was one of those things where Blonde Zach. They did a good job of moving at a pace slow enough to get you acclimatized to what's a nobody and why this whole thing has even happened, and to make you very well aware that if you didn't play Chain of Memories, you should go back and play Chain of Memories. So, yeah.
And if you had played Chain of Memories, some of those things would start to feel a little bit more familiar because you'd start to see people in cloaks that looked a lot like Organization 13 from Chain of Memories.
Yep.
So you would get that sense, but this whole Roxas new person starts off pretty confusing. So you start to think, okay, we're just in a whole new game, like a whole new setting, like, maybe we'll meet up at some point, but this is just a different story entirely.
Which would not be unlike Square Enix because they did that with the Final Fantasy series.
Final Fantasy games, yeah. Do you want to continue with our story recap from there, or would you like me to take over?
Why don't you take over? Because I will be honest, it's been a while since I've been in Kingdom Hearts 2, so I probably need you to help fill in the gaps anyway.
Fair enough. So when you finish kind of going through this intro section, you actually learn that you're in a computer simulation. So this Twilight Town that is actually inside a computer. So you actually end up going out and into the real world and getting very confused because everything's kind of the same, but everything's also kind of different. It's at that point in the game that you end up learning that Roxas is actually just memories of Sora. So you're playing a rehabilitation version of Sora. So from Chain of Memories, remember, we went to sleep in this little pod trying to get back our memories. So this simulation is an attempt to help that process along. And from that point on, we take over from Sora again, who has now regained his memories aside from Chain of Memories. And we continue the game as the previous Kingdom Hearts game has.
And then just to throw one more thing in, the nobody, just to clear up that concept, we talked about the heartless in the first one, which is, a thing that is spawned, taken away from someone. A nobody is confusing because it's the quote unquote husk that is left behind is a person's nobody. So Roxas is Sora's nobody.
Yeah, but you don't know that. You don't know that at this point.
We do. Yeah, we should know that by the end of things.
Do they?
By the end of the intro, he does know that he is Sora's nobody, and he chooses to return to Sora.
He chooses to return to Sora. So then Roxas's heart is inside Sora. Heart counter. I'll put it in post. We got another tick in Sora's heart there. Yes, you are correct. We do actually learn that he's his nobody from back in the day. So we do actually we go back to Yen Sid again, and Yen Sid explains the concept of the heartless and the nobody to us. And then the nobodies, if you're an extremely powerful person with a good presence of mind or whatever, your nobody becomes self-aware in a sense. It looks exactly like you but slightly different, and those nobodies have formed Organization 13, and those are the ones that are our villain for the second game. We're fighting heartless and nobodies, but Organization is kind of seen as the one that we're trying to truly fight this whole time.
Correct. Yes.
That sends us off on our little adventure, going through the Disney worlds again, battling things, battling the Organization. Fun times are had by all, except for pretty much everybody that we murder along the way. We meet up with Riku, who also is looking dapper in his black coat, like Organization like to wear. At some point, he ends up looking a lot like Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, because if you remember back in our Chain of Memories game, he had darkness and also had light, and he decided to accept them both. As a result, Ansem possessed his body, but didn't. So he looks like Ansem, but he has Riku's mind. Don't think too hard about it. It's not going to matter a little bit.
Exactly.
We go through all of this. Once again, for some reason, Kairi's involved. Who knows? Who cares? We go through all of this. Turns out Organization 13 is making Heartless show up so that we can go to those worlds, kill the Heartless, which is apparently fueling their version of Kingdom Hearts, or what they think is Kingdom Hearts, which is very different from the big door that we learned of last time. Kingdom Hearts has two different concepts that are both named Kingdom Hearts. It's okay. We have more of those coming yet. And so they're trying to create this Kingdom Hearts, led by their wonderful leader, Xemnas. And we basically want to defeat them. Turns out Diz is there, who reveals himself to actually be Ansem. Now, not Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. The Ansem with a different name. He is, what was his subtitle? He has a subtitle, but...
I may be wrong on this, but I thought it was just Ansem the Wise.
Oh, Ansem the Wise, yeah. So it turns out he's Ansem the Wise, not Ansem the Seeker of Darkness. These are two different people. Don't worry, we'll explain that one when it becomes relevant, aka in the future. It's bullshit. Doesn't matter. We're fighting Xemnas. Diz is there, who's actually Ansem. We have the other Ansem here, who's actually Riku. Ansem the Wise creates a device to blow up the Kingdom Hearts that Xemnas is creating. He does it. It blows up. Organization 13 loses. The explosion somehow turns Riku back into actual Riku instead of Ansem. Once again, don't worry about it. He's now Riku again. And this is essentially the plot of what happens in Kingdom Hearts 2. You are left confused as to where we all started and where we all ended. But we're here, and we got to play in Tron World, so who really cares? This was fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good recap. And I know we've done a much more abridged version, but we've got more things to get through this time around, and there's less of a need to talk about the Disney worlds because you start to realize as we progress further on, the Disney worlds are there just to highlight that Disney was involved, but the real story now is the things that happen outside of the Disney worlds.
So I think Barry puts it really good in his summary. In general, so I love these games. I love going to the Disney worlds. I think they're a lot of fun. They're great for gameplay. They're great for visuals. They're great for all these different reasons. But the way that Barry puts it in his summaries is you go to all these Disney worlds, but they literally do not matter to the overarching story. It does not matter where you go. Their only point is that you went to them and progressed in levels and in progression of other people doing things to eventually get to the end set piece. The actual place that you went to Tron World, you went to, these different worlds. It didn't matter which one you went to. They could have subbed in entirely different worlds in all of these places, and it wouldn't have changed the game in any way, shape, or form. So they're fun, and I love them, but they really don't matter to the overarching story.
That's fair.
So
I think it's just a great way to highlight a whole bunch of nostalgic Disney characters.
yes,
because that's what sells the game is people saying, "Oh, I get to go and play with this thing that I did when I was 5."
and like I said, I think it's great that you go there. They're beautiful. They give you great costumes. There's great art. There's great designs for the enemies. It's fun to see the voice actors back. All those sorts of things. I love going to them. But if you're thinking from a narrative perspective, the actual world that you're in really means nothing.
And in fact, one thing I appreciated about Kingdom Hearts 2 is that they actually included pirates
Oh,
as a part of one of the worlds that you went to. So you had a very different visual. Actually, they did that with a number of the worlds now that I think about it for Kingdom Hearts 2. It looked as though they wanted to experiment with different animation styles.
sorry, I dropped out there for just one
That's okay.
second.
I'll say that again. I appreciate that with Kingdom Hearts 2, the Disney worlds they included this time around were bringing in different animation styles. So you had Pirates. It was a live action one, and we got to see that as something different. They also had Timeless River, which very, very old school, and
the black and white.
Yes, the very simplistic character drawings, because they actually did bring Donald, Goofy, and Sora in properly to mesh with that time period. And that's what I would highlight this time around with the Disney Worlds is they did a lot of experimentation on the different types of environments they could put you into, as opposed to what, big name Disney characters can we bring into to have Sora fight alongside.
I agree. They really did play with that. They played around with the enemy designs more. Like things got more and more themed to the worlds you went to, which made you feel more integrated into them, and that was really a big plus to playing through them. Is you felt more into those worlds, and I really loved that.
So I think it's a good segue into the combat and gameplay.
Yes.
So this was the first time that they really upgraded your combat system. I think the thing that people liked the most was that your MP management got a significant upgrade from what it was previously. You didn't have the blocks that were, one block equals one spell cast. Spells themselves actually had an MP value. So cheaper spells you actually had spells that were cheaper versus ones that cost more. And there were a number of mechanics you could use to maximize sort of your your magic usage.
Yeah, spell casting and mana usage became a lot more interesting and usable as opposed to just a system that was there because we're called an RPG. It felt more meaningful in that, which also made Donald just as much as an idiot, but he actually had some spells that could potentially do damage while he's being an idiot. So, slight upgrade in that sense.
And then I think that's the first time they added the was it overdrive, aka your Final Fantasy limit breaks?
Yes, limit break style stuff where you could change form. Get 2 keyblades in that form for a little bit. Master form, spell casting form, where all of a sudden you don't need mana, you can just cast spells infinitely, for that period of time. Lots of fun. You had to charge it up, but like that added a lot of fun to the game. Helped speedrunners immensely as well.
Yeah, I think the fact that Valor form, the first one where you were dual wielding, I think a lot of people, including myself, loved the idea of I get to dual wield keyblades now.
Because there's only one
so
keyblade in the world, so now you can dual wield them.
We're gonna have a Sword Art Online conversation about that in the future too.
But yeah, so combat-wise, they added a lot of fun things like that. Reaction commands were also in there in a more heavy way. So once again, Codingberry, I love his description is that now you mash X a lot and sometimes triangle.
Yes.
Because every once in a while you need to do the reaction commands or the special things, the cinematic versions. It added a different kind of flair to some of the combats, making them a little bit more cinematic, which is always fun, especially in these games that have a cinematic drive to them, right? So that was good. I mean, all in all, Kingdom Hearts 2 had a fantastic combat system. It's probably where they started to reach their peak of being just great, right? Like they just...
I mean, all in all, it was a fantastic game.
It was. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Story confusion aside, the game itself is probably the one that I would first choose to go back and play. Prior to us having Kingdom Hearts 3, it was like, okay, you're going to play a Kingdom Hearts game, you're going to play Kingdom Hearts 2. Because that just...
Yes.
That was the game that had the most... and it had all the fun.
Yep. All right. Looking at the time, I want to be conscious of how much time we have left. So we're going to move on past Kingdom Hearts 2 to the first of the ridiculous titles.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, which came out on the Nintendo DS. And I'm bringing that out because this was then going back to your handheld devices and once again back on Nintendo. Which I found funny that it seemed as though your console releases were on Sony's PlayStation, your handheld releases were on Nintendo. So this came out for the DS. And if you have picked up any of the collections that have come out recently for like the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4, what you're going to find is just a collection of cinematics and not the actual games. And that goes for the other one we're going to be talking about, Recoded as well. My understanding is they lost the source code for Kingdom Hearts 1 and they rebuilt it. And because of the time it took to rebuild that game, they just didn't have the time to put into properly porting these games, which is unfortunate. So
they also
358 over 2
weren't
days.
That great mechanics wise. Like they weren't really anything to write home about. So there wasn't really a sense in rebuilding those.
So I'm going to start by asking, did you ever actually play this game?
No.
Okay. I have purchased the game. It's technically in my house, but it's been put away for Christmas, so I will be playing this game. I have seen people play it, and my understanding is this is what Chain of Memories should have been.
Yes.
And I really want to know if it was a technical limitation on the Game Boy Advanced that prevented them from going down this route or not, but it's one of those things where it is a true mobile version of you swinging a Keyblade around. It's just a little bit more monotonous on the actual gameplay aspect, but the story for this one, if you want your typical Final Fantasy, they're going to hit you right in the feels. This is a game where you're going to feel for the characters. So this one actually takes a step back and focuses on Roxas, the character we were introduced to in Kingdom Hearts 2. And this gives us a lot of the backstory of what he was doing leading up to him starting in Kingdom Hearts 2. So it happens in between the end of Chain of Memories and the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2. So, I thought about it, it's just this would have really helped fill in some of those gaps. No?
It's
What
from
am
the
I missing?
end of Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom
Sorry,
Hearts 2.
yes.
It actually takes place
Right.
during Chain of Memories in a different portion, because at a point in the story, Axel actually leaves to go to Castle Oblivion.
Yes, that's right. I was thinking this would have really helped people have an understanding of Roxas going in. From a story perspective, though, I understand why they didn't, and that is because you, or at least I, got super attached to him as a character by the end of 358 over 2 days that I think they would have had troubles with the way that Kingdom Hearts 2 started if this came out first.
I can see that. I can see that. Especially because, like, he needed to just go away, kind of thing, at the
Yep.
beginning of the game. It would have provided more context as to who he was, but I guess it does make sense to release it afterwards and kind of say, like, okay, here's the backstory for that character you didn't know anything about. Here
And now you feel
we're
terrible
gonna
about
make you
what
like
happened to
him,
him.
and then because you're meant to be Sora, we're also gonna make you feel really bad about the fact that he had to sacrifice himself so you came back. So later on, when more stuff happens with Roxas and Sora, you'll feel invested in that relationship between the two of them.
Yes. So we already know that Roxas is Sora's nobody. And we have, as of Kingdom Hearts 2, found out that the strongest nobodies are Organization 13, the strongest wills of personalities who were able to keep a conscious mind, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this game focuses on you playing as Roxas, accompanied by various members of Organization 13, essentially working for the bad guys this time around. And the overall goal is that Roxas is brought in as relatively a blank slate, as the 13th member of this organization. And he has the ability to wield a Keyblade, which no one else in the organization can do up to that point. They need him. They need him to fight the Heartless because when the Keyblade defeats a Heartless, it doesn't just release the heart back into the wild, it actually allows them to collect it. So the things that they wanted Sora doing in Kingdom Hearts 2, Roxas technically was the first one starting that
They were
that work at that
trying to
time.
do it with Roxas originally during this time period.
Now, shortly after you get started into the game and you get introduced to a whole bunch of these organization members, some of them that you were not necessarily introduced to in Kingdom Hearts 2, if you did all of the final fighting of, some of the extra content, you would have fought all of these characters. You're now getting introduced to some of them and learning a little bit more about the whole organization. And it becomes very clear that Axel is sort of Roxas's mentor and, ends up becoming his best friend. A new member is quote unquote created, the 14th member. They never actually update the organization number past 13 to 14. But Shion, who looks like a black haired version of Kyrie, also, just as a quick version, starts following Sora around as another person who can wield the Keyblade. I'm starting to lose the story now. Do you remember exactly where this keeps going? Because
Yeah.
I'm being conscious of time.
So yeah, the Chihon and Roxas continue to kind of go around and do stuff and try to figure out who they are. Axel leaves for a while. That's when he goes to Castle Oblivion on this secret mission, and Roxas starts to get concerned that there's stuff about the organization that he doesn't know because he's the only one that can do this except for Chihon,
Yep.
and he's starting to get confused. Ends up learning that the organization just wants to use him, and so decides he wants to leave, which puts a rift between him and Shihon and Axel, because Axel still works for the organization, and Shihon, we don't know much about her. So there's kind of this whole play and stuff, and Roxas ends up trying to leave, which ends up him fighting Axel and Shihon,
Yes.
to try and leave. And in the end, he does actually end up escaping which leads to him being approached by Riku and put into the computer simulation that we find him at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 to restore Roxas.
Yes.
Or to restore Sora from him. The only other real important part of note over all of that is that at one point, randomly in the cinematics, Shihon's head changes to become Sora's head. And everybody went, wait, did I actually see that? And then it goes away, and they never address it or identify that it ever happened.
I don't think they address it there. I think it gets
they address it later. No, I'm talking where we are in the story. We're not. Oh, okay. It hasn't been addressed. Like in the story that you're seeing, it happens, and all of us think that we just went insane because it happened, and nobody in the rest of the game, like, you don't know what happened there. So yeah, that's the only other point in note, and that's basically the story. We learn more about the short organization, and Roxas leaves, and we get that.
The short version on go ahead. Sorry.
We get that character connection, so that's the important part.
Yes. I will just say the short version on combat is, it definitely is an upgrade from what was previously on a mobile device. So it's one of those things where if you desperately wanted to play on a handheld, this is one to try and pick up a copy of. Quickly moving into Recoded, I will just say the combat...
I forgot one other part that did happen in that story. When you leave, you actually kill Shihon. She sacrifices herself to allow you to escape. So she actually dies in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yes.
A lot of things we're going to say with quotation marks. So Recoded, I will start with the combat and just say it plays out very similar to what 358 over 2 days does. The only difference is you are now playing with Sora instead of with Roxas.
There's less cards involved.
Yes. This is also one of those that if you picked up the collection, they didn't have enough time to properly redo the game.
They just put in a bunch of cinematic.
Yeah. Yep. Enough to try and give you the story, but not a complete picture of the story from... I would say go watch the PlayFrame version of those if you don't pick up the game yourself. Dan's done a fantastic job of integrating some other people's gameplay that has relevant story pieces that are not a part of the HD cinematics into it, so that you get a more complete picture of everything that's going on.
It's true. Have you ever played this game?
I have not, but again,
you will
purchased a 3DS copy of it. I do want to try it, as much as I hate the concept behind what you're about to talk about story-wise.
Yeah. All right. So let's do some quick story, because the most important bits happen at the beginning and the end, and then I'll skip the middle. So the story opens. Jiminy opens up the journal that has been recording your progress through all of our previous 4 games. Well, 3 games, because 358 over 2 is not Sora.
Yep.
He opens up this book and he goes, none of our data's in here. All it says is thank nominee. And if you never played the mobile games, you'd be like, who is that? Yep. And so you're very confused, and we have no idea what's going on. So the chipmunks decide to digitize the journal so that you can go into the data and figure out what's going on, what's the problem, what's going on in there. Because apparently that's a thing you can do in Kingdom Hearts. You go inside and there's corrupted data in there, so now you're fighting corrupted data instead of Heartless. All the enemies are corrupted data. You become Data Sora, you meet Data Riku, and you fight your way through a whole bunch of Disney worlds and stuff, fighting data and clearing up data. The only really important thing out of all of this is that these data versions of these characters end up actually having hearts, because data world, real world, those are the same thing in essence in Kingdom. Like, there is no delineation there. So these data things, these are actual people now that we have now created by digitizing this journal and giving them a story. And so yeah, this is all just kind of become real, and you basically solve the problem with the journal, which is basically just data, and you're just creating more hearts and more shenanigans. And then Maleficent shows up at the end because now she can time travel and she's looking for something. We don't know what and we don't know why, but we know that Maleficent is back from Kingdom Hearts 1 and she can time travel now. Perfect.
And the thing that you're going to come out of the thing is, what did I just play?
Yep.
And why is this even relevant? And the statement is, put a pin in everything that happened. It will be relevant later.
Yeah. And not necessarily in a meaningful way, but it will relate to data later.
Yes.
That's the only thing. But it's like, right now, it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
I also love that you just said it will relate to data later.
Yes, because it literally relates to data later. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just nonsense at this point, basically.
So we're actually moving pretty good on time.
Okay.
You know, overall, both of those mobile games are things that people have less played. Really, there are many playthroughs and synopsises of them if you don't actually want to try and find a DS or a 3DS and the copy of the game to play them. That will do a good job of giving you all the lore information if that's all you care about. Why don't we move on to our final question?
I mean, sure.
So, for this week, because all of these weeks are going to be Kingdom Hearts related, I thought that a fun thing would be, we now understand that there are countless different Keyblades.
Yes.
And based on the various design patterns, if you were to design your own Keyblade, what would you like to see as a Keyblade design pattern?
So I'd like you to go first on this one because I still need some time to process, Keyblades and what I would put on a Keyblade. Because it's a lot. And I know that you have a little bit more of an answer already for this one. So
yeah, it's a hard one. I had to think about this one myself. So the first thing I'd like to call out is that there are some really good patterns, and I think some of them got released during the games at unfortunate times when you were either too weak to pick it up to make it useful, or you didn't get it until much later when it was already irrelevant. And one that I would specifically like to call out is the Metal Chocobo from Kingdom Hearts 1, which is a nice callback to Cloud's Buster Sword.
Yep.
I think it's a fantastic design, but it's relatively unknown because it's never something you get used by the time you are going around to pick it up.
I feel like they would have been served better if they had detached some of the stat stuff from the Keyblade design and allowed you to shift the design without affecting the stats and just giving a special ability or something like that, or even just allow you to cosmetically overlay whatever design you wanted, because there are some great designs that aren't necessarily great to use.
Yes. And vice versa. There are some great weapons that have terrible designs.
That don't look all that great. And you're like, but I want a cool looking Keyblade. And it's like, yeah, too bad.
Yeah. So I started thinking, and, initially I was like, oh, what if, I'm a Dragoon at heart, maybe a spear? But then I'm like, no, we got to keep this as a blade. And I thought, one that I haven't seen would be Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII's Blazefire Saber. If you have not seen that weapon, it's one of those that's kind of like a bit of a switchblade as far as the way in which it deploys.
I gotta look this up. Blazefire.
There was an event in Final Fantasy XIV where you could get it as a cosmetic. I still use it today as a cosmetic for my gladiator.
Okay, that guy. Yep.
I think it's a pretty badass design that I would love to see a Keyblade based on. And more importantly, I'd love to see the animation when the Keyblade is deployed, that it sort of folds out the way that does. So
kind of flipping
that's
out.
my answer. Yeah, exactly. And I think as we're getting more into sort of the Unreal Engine animation of the more recent technology, they could do a fairly good job of animating that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. They could do some really good stuff with that. And they have done some fantastic jobs with what they've already done. So Like I'm not. We're not lacking for great versions. We just want
I
to see
think that's a
more great
testament to
ones.
the fact that this was really hard to come up with an idea because of how many great designs they've already done.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Um, so I'm just gonna say like, okay, if I'm looking at like some of the actual designs of like the keyblades that we got out there, like
Yep.
um Xehanort's keyblade with the eye in it is probably one of my more favorites. Um because of just the way that it looks. That and like the Oblivion keyblade that you actually
Oh
get
yeah,
in
yeah, that
game,
one's a good one.
is something that I really enjoy the look of. I tend to those sides of things. Um or like Riku's like wing one,
Yep.
where it's like a whole wing and that sort of thing. But those are all keyblades that already exist. So there are two ways that I go with any weapon choice for me, and that's axes or scythes. And the keyblade
Oh, I
already
know where you're
kind
going.
of looks like an axe. So like I already have really good content like the Oblivion keyblade, which is like really cool looking, kind of looks like a good axe. I found some really cool artwork of like a scythe based keyblade where rather than being a tip that's just like a point or a curve, it's a curve that goes out, and kind of with that same kind of imagery throughout it, so kind of like what Marluxia uses but a keyblade form.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
And
yeah.
in my opinion, that would be pretty awesome to see, and I would love to see how that plays and like what you would give ability wise to something with that styling. So I that's what I would choose if I had to.
I like that. That's a good choice.
Yep.
All right, I think that is time that we have for today.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. This was a lot of fun. We did get through all three of our games so that we can come back next week and continue down the rabbit hole with some of the best and some of the also more confusing. Some of the most confusing, in fact.
Yes, exactly.
So we got good and confusing coming up. Classic Kingdom Hearts episode.
Sounds like it. So if you are looking for us outside of this podcast directly, you can find us on various social media platforms at the Howling Gamers. I also do, well, I haven't done recently, but I do content on my own YouTube channel, CyberWolfJimmy. You'll find me starting up some more live streams there. I've moved a lot of my charity work there instead of on Twitch. So keep an eye there. You can also find out what I'm doing with those things on social media at CyberWolfJimmy. And, at various points, you will see Freakiod either getting to me in real life to join the streams or, possibly
Or
joining
just in
online.
chat, hanging out, chatting.
Yep.
You can find that on the YouTube there. Also on our YouTube, the link is down there in the description / right below us if you're watching, to go into the
Yep.
Howling Gamers, which is where we stream this live when we do stream it, which has been pretty regularly right now. So you can check us out there and ask questions and interact with us live. We also have a Discord, which you can find up there or in the description of the episode, where you can also interact with us